On today's episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, we'll tell you the best ways to utilize some of the best pass rushers from the 2025 NFL Draft class, like Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams, and more, coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an offensive NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He is the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every Dayers. And like in the intro, guys, we are going to talk about the edge rushers from the 2025 NFL Draft, some of the top guys that we really like coming out, and we're going to tell you what's the best way to use these guys. Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., Mykel Williams, and Mike Green. And Keith, let's start at the top, the third overall pick, right? The guy that went to the New York Giants, Abdul Carter. Keith, guy that played, we know he plays both off ball and he plays edge. And it's just the Giants going with best player available. I'm all for it. I had no problem with the pick. I think now it's a situation where you wonder, to me, it's a little bit muddy in terms of the edge rush situation and in terms of starts, right? Of course, because they drafted Kayvon about 2-3 drafts ago. You got Brian Burns, who they traded for last offseason and gave a bag to with the trade with the Carolina Panthers, right? So you already had two established guys, but Kayvon only had one real strong year, and then he battled some injuries, and he had a dip in production, things of that nature. When you think about Abdul Carter and adding this element of athleticism, speed, versatility to this front seven, what is the best way to utilize him? Should it be first, second down, he's playing off-ball backer, or do you just look at, hey, you know what? Let's see what we can get for trading off Kayvon Thibodeaux and just letting Abdul Carter take that full-time role opposite of Brian Burns?
Yeah, I don't think about trading Kayvon Thibodeaux. You drafted these guys. You knew when you drafted Abdul Carter that you had Kayvon Thibodeaux and Brian Burns, right? And I think this could honestly be a very unique situation. They have Bobby Okereke. I think it's Okereke. I think it's how you pronounce it, but it's a very weird name. Okay, and pretty good football player, right? Pretty solid. And then you got Michael McFadden, who's turning it on. I believe he was out of Indiana. I remember liking him some out of Indiana. But, I mean, you put him at stack backer with those guys, right? You let him compete with Michael Fadden. You put him in a rotation so that way on first and second downs, he's playing stack backer. And then I think you find some type of package for him to walk down on the line of scrimmage on third downs. And you just have one of the most unique pass rushing packages in the entire NFL. And who knows, DP, this could fuel the New York Giants, period, right? Like as far as their defense, like just having three edge rushers, because we always talk about having two, but what could three edge rushers do, right? Like three premier guys on third downs and potentially put them in place to be one of the best third down teams in the NFL, right? As far as defensively. So I keep all three guys. You drafted them. When you drafted Abdul, you know you had the other two guys there. I think it actually can be a benefit. It's kind of like the more the merrier, right? Like in being able to rush in bunches. And then along with that, you still have big Dexter Lawrence sitting there. So you're talking about one of the best front sevens in a division that has two heavy run teams with the Commanders and the Eagles, but just the rest of the NFL, right? If you're trying to get after the Chiefs, the Bills, Lamar Jackson, right? Like you need premier defensive guys, and I think Abdul Carter is just that. I say roll them guys out there and let them play ball.
That's kind of where my mind has been, especially initially, Keith. But then I thought about it, and I was like, man, and because I'm with you, especially like if you keep Kayvon, you run him, definitely you play Abdul because he's starting. I'm not drafting you third overall. This is not a project where you're like, oh, you know, we can't start. No, you can start him, like whether it's not off-ball backer or edge. But I think about the fact of, okay, what Kayvon's been in the league, I think, 3 years? This is going on year 4 for him. Yeah, this will be year 4. They have to figure out whether or not they're going to pick up that 5th-year option, things of that nature. And I think once the business side of it and the contract side of it starts to really trickle into Joe Shane, who is going to have some very important moves to try and figure out this season and going into the year. And we'll see if he sticks after the year. It depends on how this whole thing pans out. I could see them absolutely, and I would be open to trading him off to a team that needs edge rush help, getting a day two pick, like a second rounder to add for next year, and just continue to retool and add as much draft capital as possible. And then you just go ahead, like you said, you got 2 solid linebackers. They drafted our guy Darius Alexander, I think top of the 3rd round, to pair with Dexter Lawrence. So you could have yourself a really good front 4 in terms of, hey, we're gonna stop the run. We got a 3 tech that can rush the passer along with Dexter Lawrence. Got Brian Burns, and then for me, adding that speed, that explosiveness, the dip bend, like and for me, it's like I look at Kayvon and I like Kayvon coming out of Oregon. When you look at him and Abdul in terms of like just pass rush ability and skill, it of course I tip the cap, or the cap is tipped to Abdul. I wouldn't be opposed to trading Kayvon. If they don't trade him, yes, start Abdul at that stack backer spot, because you got to get him on the field. Nonetheless, you got to have him on the field. You need him. And like I think to your point, you're talking about Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. You got 2 high octane runners in the same division. So like that's why I'm not opposed to keeping Kayvon, but I'm like, man, I could see it happening because of the business aspect of it.
How
do you have to figure out some contract stuff?
Yeah. Do you think Kayvon Thibodeaux is going to ask for a premier price? Is that what you think? You think he's going to ask to be paid like a top guy?
I think his agent's going to want him to get paid like a top guy. You know what I mean? As we know, a lot of times the players, and this is just like for the fans to know, every like price tag, these players don't put it on themselves, man. Like these agents are the ones who have agents. They're the ones like, hey, you deserve this, and it's a good thing to have. But sometimes the agents can price themselves out of the market, right? I think it was what was it? Trent Brown, man? Not Trent Brown. I forget. He's with the Bengals now. The tackle.
Orlando Brown. Yeah,
Orlando Brown. I think the Chiefs when he was with the Chiefs first.
Yeah,
they offered him a bag. And it was for how he played, it was up to how he played, right, to his standard. But him and his agent or whatever the case may be was like, yeah, we think we can get more in the open market. Then he gets paid less, I think, to go to Cincinnati because the market really wasn't as robust as you thought it was going to be. So it's not always on the players. And I think if they gonna want they're gonna want their money. You know what I mean? Like to go from being a top 5, he was like a top 5 pick, a top 7 pick. 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think
top 5, top 7. So I think that they will ask for a substantial bag. And then that's what becomes the question of why pay Kayvon after you just paid a bag to Brian Burns when I have Abdul Carter to just step in and I got 4 years left on that rookie deal to have to worry about paying him. And potentially by the time that 4 years of it, Brian Burns isn't the guy you paid him to be. You move off of that as well, and you just go ahead and keep retooling. I think that the business aspect, I think, is just what makes it a little different, makes it a little bit of a conversation. But personally, I'm perfectly fine keeping Kayvon if you want to keep him through the year and let Abdul play that stack backer spot, and then those third downs, those third and longs is going to be interesting because then it's like, okay, the defensive coordinator, you got a chance to be very creative with your sets. If you keep all these guys,
that's what I'm excited to see. I'm excited
to be creative, like because then it's like, okay, like truly, and be completely honest with you, Keith, like you can still keep the same front 4. Like you can keep Brian Burns, Kayvon on the edge. You can keep Dexter and Darius to rush from the interior, and then you just use Abdul as that extra blitzer, that extra backer. You can send that 5th man in. When you send him as the 5th guy, like that's a very dangerous situation because I think was it the Boise State game before he got hurt that when they ran that stunt, he works back inside and loops around the guard, and then he hits that 90-degree angle bend. I'm like, I've never seen anyone bend on the interior like he's walking around the edge. It's just he's a freaky athlete, just a freaky pass rusher. This guy has tools that the things that we wanted since Von Miller. Truthfully, that's why Harold Landry was drafted the way he was, because he had similar things in his bag, the 90-degree angle, the dip and bend, things like that. I'm not opposed to either one. I think if you're going to use him, if you're going to keep Kayvon, play him at stack backer, let him be an impact play on first and second downs, because you're going to need that at the second level of your defense.
Yep, with DP, we just talked about a trio in New York. Let's talk about a duo in Atlanta. We said Terry Fontenot needs to get some edge rushers. He said, hold my drink. I got 2 for you. Let's talk about Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr. What is their projection as rookies? Let's talk about this coming up next.
Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital design syncs with your existing calendars, including Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. And I've eliminated the I didn't know or I didn't remember excuse for my family's routine because everything is synced in to our Skylight Calendar. My wife updates it daily with anything going on with our kids, with her schedule for work, and mine as well. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylightcal.com/NFL. Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., 2 first-round edge selections for the Atlanta Falcons. Terry Fontenot said, I'm tired of that dude DP getting on my back about not addressing the edge rush position, and he went and did it. Now, you know what? I tip my cap to you, Terry. Good job. Keith, I think for me, Jalen Walker, starting 15th overall pick, I think I've seen some people say, man, you know, play hits to some of the conversations like the Abdul thing. I'm not doing that. I'm playing Jalen Walker at edge full time. I want him full time at edge, and I want him pinning his ears back, getting after the quarterback. And the reason why, Keith, I think about this, their potential 2 starting edges. Remember, they drafted Braylon Trice last year out of Washington. He's more of the
ACL, right?
I think so. Yeah. In training camp, so like he never got to take a snap during the regular season, or I think even in preseason. So now him coming back healthy, and he's more of the power guy. He's the 270-pound, 275-pound stand-up edge rusher. He's gonna because I think that's gonna be the thing was like people are gonna worry about the run defense between Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. James Pierce Jr. we'll get into in a second. I think Jalen Walker would be fine. I'm kind of putting him on the strong side, like that strong side backer, wherever the tight end, whatever side the tight end lines up on. That's what I want Jalen Walker. I want him battling in the run game against tight ends. Because what do we know about NFL tight ends, Keith? They're more receivers than blockers. You know what I mean? Like at least the starters, I'll put it like that. You got some specialized guys that come in on 12 and they're the run blocker in line, things like that. But if you're playing the Chiefs, I want Jalen Walker going up against Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's not a mauler. He's not that he's not a physical. If this was Gronk, different conversation. Like that's Gronk, right? Like, but we probably will never see another Rob Gronkowski ever again. Like he's probably one of the few unicorns we'll never see again. So I'm for me, my plan with Jalen Walker, I want him strong side edge, lined up on special rundowns against the tight ends where he can set. It's an even matchup. You always talk about when your time at LSU, how you guys would tell the running backs, hey, we want to block big on big, little on little.
Little on little. Yep.
I want the same thing with my rushing situation. I want Jalen Walker, to rush again to set the edge against tight ends where he has a more favorable matchup or a more even matchup than just going up against the Lane Johnsons, Ike Ekwonu's in the run game, those big physical guys that want to try and lean their weight on him. Now, granted, this is a guy that plays with great leverage. He's strong. He's physical. Don't get it twisted. He can handle his own, but I'm trying to create that more advantageous run defense opportunities for him while Braylon Trice battles on the opposite side with the offensive tackle. And I think that's where I want him. I'm not opposed to him playing stack backer, him and Caden Ellis, at that stack backer spot. Both of them are versatile dudes. But I just think, Keith, the upside of what you can have with Jalen Walker as a pure edge rusher, it's just, to me, it's too high to waste snaps of him playing stack back. I want him to truly develop rushing the passer.
Yeah, well, I would put him as stack backer just from the perspective of as a blitzer, right? Like, and allow him to blitz the A gap, the B gap, and sending them. And sometimes, like when you talk about those odd fronts, sometimes the linebacker could be the fourth rusher, right? Like you could drop an edge rusher off or something like that and insert that linebacker. So that's why I would want him there if I'm just trying to give a different look to the defense and do some different things. But let's talk about James Pierce, DP. And I look at James Pierce and I say, I think he's a plug and play guy at the end of the day, right? Like you plug him in and you let him get after it. He's a naturally skilled edge rusher. We know the athletic ability, and he can probably be that bucket getter that you want, right? And you have to just develop him and put him in position. But I look at this duo and I say I think it's a complementary duo, DP. I think they did a good job of addressing the position, but not drafting redundant skill sets. I think these guys are different in what they could provide. And the fun part is you don't know who's going to be the best, right? And I think that's a good thing and a good problem to have. And I'm glad you brought up Braylon Trice, because you add that in there, then it becomes a trio like we talked about with New York, right? And Atlanta Falcons can probably finally get out of pass rush purgatory to where they're doing a whole lot of bad.
Yeah, I think with James Pierce and me and Keith, I'm going to use him, especially since you have Braylon Trice, you drafted Jalen Walker. I'm going to use him in my DPR. I was like, because I think with him being 245, we got to see how he handles the strength in the run game. You know, we know how teams are. The run game is back. For all the analytical folks out here who said, listen, you throw just to throw. Nah, baby, the run game is back in the NFL. So you got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to stop the run. And I think that's the part of his game, to me, that's still developing. And where I think the pass rush situation, when he steps on the field, I think he's going to be able to be a consistent pressure guy. I mean, I was looking at, like, you know, you look at what Jared Verse was able to do. Jared Verse he only had 4.5 sacks last year for the Rams, but he had almost 80 pressures, like almost 17% of Jared Verse's pressures as a rookie, or 17% of his snaps, pass rush snaps as a rookie, he generated pressure on. Like, he was consistently in the backfield. I think that James Pierce Jr., of course, different way of doing it, not so much the power and the decleating guys and all that type of stuff, but the speed, the athleticism, the quickness that he plays with, I think all of that is going to allow him to be a consistent pressure guy. But I'd rather him be the guy. He's my X factor in that situation. Third, tens, like, yeah, like you've been dealing with Jalen Walker all game. You've been dealing with Braylon Trice and Ruka Roro and all these different David Yamada and all these guys. Great. Now I'm bringing this fastball off the edge, and his legs are fresh. He is ready to go. He's revved up. He is energized to give you all the hell you can handle. And that's the guy I want. Just at least for right now. I think once I get comfortable with the run defense, then it's going to become a conversation of what do you do with Braylon Trice? Because now James Pierce Jr. and potentially Jalen Walker are your two starting edges. You know what I mean? And you got to figure out how you want to use Braylon Trice. Maybe Braylon Trice becomes kind of one of those like pseudo not kick down, you know, over the guard rushers.
Because he's a fairly heavy guy too. I think he's like 265, 270. So it's nothing for him to put on another 5 to 10 pounds and be at 280, right?
You're legit. And rush as that 3-tech, 4-eye type situation against guards. And I think he can have really good success with that because he does have strength and everything. And that's kind of how I would handle James Pierce. I want to see him, of course, how he handles the run game. You know, we see as much as you can during training camp because, you know, they don't really let him hit and everything. And they don't play full pads consistently, which to me, Keith, I think back to when we were growing up and we had 2-a-days, you know what I'm saying? I remember them hot days, you know, like waking up 6 a.m., being at the school by 7, you know what I'm saying? Then go back, practice over at 12, go get you something to eat, come back at like 1:30, you practice from 2 to like 4, you done for the day. Guess what? I don't recall a whole lot of torn ACLs and stuff back in the day, Keith. I feel like these guys not practicing nowadays is why we see these injuries. But nonetheless, I think that's how I would do it. The Falcons have a really good problem on their hands. They have a very good problem on their hands. And it's just like, hey, Raheem, that's why I think with Jalen Walker, I always think back to his time to the Raheem Morris, the head coach. When he was DC with the Rams, he had Byron Young, who was similarly built. I think Byron might be a little bit taller than Jalen Walker, but stout, strong, low center of gravity, quick first step, speed to power, bull rush type of guy that can get around the edge, work back inside, things of that nature coming out of Tennessee. I think Jalen Walker can be that for him as well, be that for him with the Falcons. And yeah, man, I think the main thing they're going to have to figure out is, all right, who's going to be the interior defensive line guys on those third downs? So we can, you know, do you have a Kobe Turner on this team, right? You don't have Aaron Donald because, you know, it's only one of those. Like, do you have a Kobe Turner? It was like, if you have a guy that you feel comfortable with, so you know what, he can be our Kobe Turner and do similar things, then okay, yeah, we're the 4-man rush and maybe, like you said, some of the blitz packages, things like that, because you still have Caden Ellis, who also can help you get after the quarterback. Yeah, I'm excited to see what Raheem Morris does with this front seven, because this is a front seven. At the end of the day, I blame Bryce Young. He lit them up week 17, week 18 last year. You know what I mean? The no look, throw touchdown, the celebration. I know that pissed those guys off. Like, okay. But it's like, what can you do? You can't get back there to him. Like, he's back there chilling, you know what I mean? Making breakfast and throwing touchdowns. Like, you got to get back there. Got to get back there and make him uncomfortable. And I'm excited to see what Raheem Morris does, because this front seven could be one of the better front sevens in the league if they actually get the guys in the right positions.
Yep, I agree with DP. Let's talk about this, man. 2 edge rushers that went to prime historic defensive teams, right? We have Mykel Williams to the San Francisco 49ers. We have Mike Green to the Baltimore Ravens. Let's talk about the outlook for those 2 guys. Talk about that coming up next.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every dayers. Mykel Williams, the big 6'5", 265, almost 275-pound defensive lineman and edge rusher from Georgia, going to now be coached up by Robert Saleh, who's back home in San Fran with those 49ers.
Back home and safe. He's home back and safe.
He got out of New York and said, I'm not going to keep taking blame for stuff I had nothing to do with. I am back home where I belong. And this is a defense that's kind of a little bit revamped. You know what I mean? Letting the go Charvarius Ward, things of that nature. And they have to figure out the opposite edge. That next step in the opposite edge guy, opposite of Nick Bosa, right? And I think that's what Mykel could come in. Kayvon, you look at his fitting him into this defense with Robert Saleh and with Nick Bosa, and I think Yetur Gross-Matos and Fred Warner, and I think D. Winters, who's the off-ball backer out of TCU that they drafted 2 drafts ago. Malik Mustafa. They got some young guys to really
Nick Martin, who they drafted in the 3rd round.
Yep. They got Nick Martin, Upton Stout to play the slot role, and Jair Brown that's a strong safety or the safety spot. Young defense. How do you see Mykel Williams fitting in?
I think he's going to be a developmental piece, right? I think they're going to focus more on year 2 than this year for him. I think he's going to be a guy that they looked at all the physical tools, and maybe somebody that, the people that's been around the 49ers organization a long time, maybe he reminded them of Aldon Smith, right? Just with all the physical tools and traits. And they're like, you know what? If we can get the very best out of him, the very best out of Mykel Williams, we get him in a good spot. So that's how I look at it. I look at it as though he is more about year 2 than year 1 in him. You've seen the flashes when they played Texas, right? Of like what he can do as far as taking over a game. Now it's just about consistency, right? Like, how does he not perform in the off season, but how does he handle the off season to get himself prepared for the regular season and just creating those type of habits?
Yeah. Now, I mean, looking at their edge rush room, he took Gross-Matos, who's like fluctuated with his weight, depending on why he was in Carolina, depending on what they asked him to do. Robert Beal Jr., who they drafted out of Georgia. They got Teron Jackson from Coastal Carolina, who was drafted in the 6th round to the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not a great behind Nick Bosa. It is not a great group of edge rushers. It is not a great group of edge rushers, and the opportunities for Mykel are going to be plentiful in this rookie year for him to really get the snaps that he to get the full season, barring staying healthy, to really just develop. And it's going to be one of the more interesting 2025 prospect storylines to watch is his development.
How he unfolds,
I don't believe anybody else should be starting over him in this edge rush group opposite Nick Bosa. I think it should be him, and you're prepared to be him. And I think you look at what he's going to bring, he has such a high floor because that run defense translates immediately to the NFL.
100%.
It's going to translate. He's long, he's big, he's strong, he's going to set the edge, but also he can also play that he can play the interior defensive line spots, that 3-tech, that 4-eye against the run, and as a pass rusher as well. So if they did feel like they felt like one of the smaller guys, like a Robert Beal, could give him some juice and everything off the edge, you could reduce Mykel down and get him matched up with his 34 some change arms against those guards and really be creative with it. But I definitely think that he should be the starting edge opposite of Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is a technician. He's good with his hands. He's strong. He's athletic. and you want that type of development with Mykel.
Learn from him. You want him to learn.
Be a student, man. Be a student in this situation. I think, especially in their division, where it's like, okay, we got to deal with Kyler Murray, right? The running ability, all the stuff that he brings, but you also got to deal with James Conner and Trey Benson. They're going to run the ball in Arizona. You know they're going to run the ball in Seattle, right? And now you got Sam Darnold, who is not good against pressure. So you got to figure, hey, can we get back there to Sam Darnold, right? And of course, Matthew Stafford and the weapons he has now, right? Like, you might want to go ahead and get back to them, get back there to him, right? Big fella, you want to get back there and make him uncomfortable. You don't want him dotting every I and crossing every T with Puka Nacua. You got Terrence Ferguson they just added. You got Devontae Adams, like Tutu Atwell still there. Like, he's got a litany of weapons, like 3 running backs in the backfield that they can throw in and interchange at any moment with Kyron Williams, who's been a top 10 rusher the last like 2-3 years.
They just drafted.
Hunter, they got Blake Corum from last year. Yeah, you kind of want to make sure you can get back there, stop the run, force him to make some uncomfortable decisions. I think Mykel could have a nice year in year one, but like I said, the story of his development is going to be so important to see how it plays out.
Yep. Well, DP, let's talk about Mike Green. The Baltimore Ravens have been needing like a go-to guy, right? Probably since Terrell Suggs. They had the defensive tackle who had double-digit sacks. I'm blanking on his name.
Justin Madubuike, but I think he changed his name.
Yeah, and they had him, but they needed an edge rush guy, right? Like, so they could have that 1-2 tandem. What do you see with Mike Green and the Baltimore Ravens as far as outlook?
Man, I think he could be the bucket getter. Like, I really believe he could be that for them. I know they and the kid, I forgot they drafted Adisa Isaac last year in round 3 out of Penn State.
Yep.
Odafe Oweh, I think, is coming off a solid year. They still had David Ojabo, but I think that reclamation project is about to be over. He's just never. I don't think he ever truly recovered after after the I think it was the Achilles. I believe it was his Achilles and everything. I don't believe that he ever really recovered from that, and so he never got back to being the guy he was supposed to be. Right. So I think when you look at what they were able to do last year, Kyle Van Noy led them with 12.5 sacks. So Odafe Oweh had 10. Instead of Justin, it's Nnamdi Madubuike. That's what he goes by now. And he had 6.5 sacks last year from the interior. But then after that, it's 3.5 from Tavis Robinson, 2 from Michael Pierce. Yeah, Mike Green is going to come in, Keith, in my opinion, and be the guy. That juice they need. They don't have that true, just explosive first step quickness, bendy guy. Like, again, like you draft for your. Unfortunately for them, they're not in the position the Bills are in. The Bills aren't drafting for their division. They own it, right? They're not drafting to beat the Dolphins or the Patriots or the Jets. They're drafting to beat you, Baltimore. They're drafting to beat Pat Mahomes. And if they see Joe Burrow again, let me knock them off and get to the promised land. You're drafting to win your division because you still have Joe Shiesty taking snaps under center with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Like, you're drafting to keep him from taking the mantle of the king of the AFC North again. So knowing that what they have, Mike Green, I think, comes in. His agility, I think he tested ridiculously at his pro day with the I think 20-yard shuttle, the 3-cone, and then of course the hoop drills. His ability to sink and drive, he got that feint punch, the ghost punch into the dip and rip, where he can close on the quarterback. We saw him in Mobile. I think for him, he's going to be a DPR. With Kyle Van Noy still there, Odafe Oweh, they're going to be the guys to be tasked on first and second downs.
Yep.
Because you think about, remember the rep against Ariante Ursary, where he tried to power through him, and it was like, Ariante was like, that's not happening. We're not doing that today, big fella. Like, so I think that's a situation where, okay, you don't want him, and I think he's a solid run defender. It's not like he's a bad run defender, but they have the riches, the luxury of, we don't have to start you. Like, we have the edge rush guys who are veterans, who are truly proven. Like Odafe, even though Odafe Oweh isn't the most technical guy, you still knock off 10 sacks last year. You know what I mean? So I think that's what he's going to bring to this defense, Keith, is just 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 12s. Your defense does a good job on first and second down. Now, Joe Burrow, you got a guy that's a fastball, and they haven't had a fastball.
Earn the right.
Oh, wow.
what they say, earn a right to rush the passer, and he's done that, and then he's going to be able to get after it. So I agree with you with everything with that. With DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Guys, we are starting summer scouting on tomorrow, Tuesday. We're kicking off our summer scouting series. And who bigger and better to start with than the Manning boy himself, Arch Manning. Yeah, we don't know if he's going to come out for the 2026 NFL Draft. We don't care. We're still going to scout him. We're going to look at him and tell you about him just in case they throw us a curveball next April. But guys, come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.